What is one thing that you instantly regretted saying to someone? Was in grad school working on some websites on the side. The director of the African American Studies program was publishing a paper that had to do with slavery in this part of the country, and he wanted a website for his research. When I first met with him, I referred to him as Doctor, and he told me just to call him by his first name because honorifics made him uncomfortable. My reply was, I get my MFA in a few months, which is a terminal degree, and after that, I'll insist you people call me Master. The worst part is that I realized as it was coming out, but nothing could be done. I just gasped out loud, whoa, that is one impressive frick up. Me, your dad's party is really fun right now. Woman, he's actually my husband. Me, screams internally. Happened at a party hosted by a rich guy. All I knew was that the woman was related to him, so I just assumed she was his daughter. Wait, she's related to him and they're married. That's fricked up, man. My first year teaching and a boy made fun of my receding hairline. It was the second week or so and I still wasn't used to how to behave as an educator and said, oh frick you. Oops. I will be entering my 17th year of teaching, and it still takes me a week or two to defuculate my language from the summer. I can't remember the context, but I told a good friend of mine about a problem I was having in somewhat vague terms, and he attempted to be a good friend and relate to me by describing his own similar problem. What I meant to say was along the lines of thank you, that's similar, but not exactly the same problem I have. What came out of my mouth was I hear you man, but that's really not my problem. Oh gosh, I hope he gave you the chance to correct that. When I was maybe 12 or so, my uncle ditched his family overnight. They came over the same night, and while my mom was consoling my aunt, I hung out with my cousins. I'm sure my cousins didn't want to talk about it, but I just kind of blurted out, so your dad's gone. Huh, I had meant to approach it way more delicately, but that's how it came out. Thankfully they just ignored it and moved on from there. 14-year-old me had a job washing pots and pans and doing prep at a clam shack. One slow day I told the boss I was bored. He invented new ways and things for me to clean that day. 30 years later, I have still never uttered those words to a boss, no matter the job. Again, lesson learned. It's good to avoid saying those words in general. We're all responsible for our own entertainment. You're not my real mom. I was in high school and my mom didn't want me going to her party. I had already told my friends I would go, so I was annoyed with my mom for not allowing it. She wouldn't budge and I told her that she couldn't tell me what to do because she isn't my real mom. My parents adopted me when I was an infant and I completely consider them to be my parents. I don't even know why I said it. The look on my mom's face after I said it was heartbreaking. I apologized and she told me that it was okay, but I still feel awful about it. Thanks so much for having us. It was a pleasure to be here. Meet to the parents. At the incredibly tragic funeral of a beautiful 6-year-old girl that died of a very rare genetic mutation inherited from her parents that slowly transformed her from a perfectly normal toddler to a vegetable with constant seizures. It was very, very sad, and my brain froze. My mouth panicked, and that's what came out. We were on a work excursion to a casino which was about 2 hours away. We were drinking on the bus on the way there and were trying to finish a 1-liter vodka bottle between 3 people before we got there. When the bus reached the destination there was an announcement to keep Validid ready. As I was getting up from my seat I saw 2 of the older women, think mid-50s, sitting behind me looking for something in their purse and I blurted, "You guys don't need it." The look on their faces is something I will not forget. That is why you need a quick response. Just saying something like "they always let the pretty girls in. Dread to love in seconds." Plus, people around who noticed the first blunder will be floored by the later pickup. This was said by my mother, but I think I felt the regret just as much as she did. A guy from a mattress company came and dropped off a mattress a couple days ago. The guy was black. When he came into our house, he made a comment about how hairy our dog was. My mom laughed and said, "We don't do black in this house." She was referring to black clothing and how animal hair is much more noticeable on it. I think it took the mattress mover a few seconds to realize that's what she meant. I'm a high school math teacher and we had parent-teacher conferences. I had a student in my class whose older sister I know. She is 2 years younger than me. Quick backstory. I have hung out with the sister before while I was a freshman in college and had been over to their house, but have never met their parents. My student's mom came in to meet me, and after she introduced herself, the first thing I said was, "I have been to your house before." 2 days earlier, a teacher at our school was arrested for child molestation with a student. I instantly regretted that one. That's unfortunate. Played Cards Against Humanity with a few of my co-workers and friends, one of them having gone through a fairly recent divorce. On one of his turns to select the best white card, he reads the CL, and one of the other players leans over and says clitoris. He tilts his head to the side while chuckling and says, "What's the clitoris?" and we all start laughing, and when we realize he's being serious, we laugh some more. I, the 22-year-old virgin at the time, who can't believe that this 27-plus-year-old guy doesn't know what the clitoris is, pipe up while laughing. Dude, if you don't know what the clitoris is, that might be why you got a divorce, which is met with the hardest and loudest laughter of the evening from everyone, including him. We all enjoyed ourselves the rest of the evening, but his attitude after that comment shifted from having a good time to "I need to keep drinking." And he drank harder and harder as the night went on, and I felt worse and worse watching him spiral into drunkenness and bad memories. Looking back, the joke was hilarious, but after seeing what it did to him mentally, I wish I could have kept my mouth shut. I played with my dad and his new girlfriend a year or so after my parents split. He was the card czar and drew the black card. How am I maintaining my relationship status? To which I had the worst card, my ex-wife, which I played. He was so uncomfortable and didn't want to read it. I felt bad. "I love you" to a girl I had been dating for less than a month in high school. Freaking high school, man. Made it way harder to break up with her for literally no reason. Similarly lost a good friend I've had for years when I said that to her. She made it look like it wasn't so bad, but in the next couple of months she slowly started to create distance. Nowadays, we're studying the same thing and sometimes say hi. Every moment I regret that decision I took. I've got to go feed my cat. Somehow in my naive drunk mind it didn't occur to me that this attractive woman was inviting me back to her place for something more than a place to sleep. At that point I already knew she only had one couch, which would be occupied by her friend. Instead of having hot, kinky, sweaty, insane sex, I went home and fed my cat. Well, at least you're a good pet parent. I was on a work night out, and one of my bosses said that he liked me because I reminded him of his brother, to which I replied, "Oh, that's just because we've both been inside your mum." I can still remember his reaction now, after 15 or so years. "Kid, you seem like a weird person." 12-year-old me, "Your mom seems like a weird person." Kid, "My mom's dead." 12-year-old me, "She probably couldn't stand to see how fat her son was getting. I don't know why I did it." Savage. Shown a picture of a girl and a much older man posing together. Me, "Nice pic. Is that your dad?" Her, aghast look on her face. "No, that's my husband." Someone was peeking through a small glass window in the high school class door. Girl says, "Who is it?" My immediate joke response was, "It's your dad. I just attended her father's funeral about 5 days before." No one laughed. Dude. I'm a 6'5" dude. There was a 15-year-old kid I was babysitting who was really shy and finally opened up to me that his biggest dream was to be a professional basketball player, despite him being really short. I blurted out, "Really? Basketball?" like an absolute T, and I'm still ashamed of the crushed look in his eyes. 15-year-old, babysitting. I don't think he was short, just 10. I hosted these last 3 parties so I could have an excuse to talk to you, me, as well as Ted Mosby. She immediately let go of my hand. Gatsby. I told the gorgeous Irish redhead that lives next door that she looked knackered, exhausted, only to instantly realize that she just wasn't wearing any makeup. Haven't had a chance since then to try and tell her she looks nice in an attempt to balance it out, but it would probably look like I was trying to flirt with her anyway. This reminds me of something that happened to me. A friend of mine in high school always wore a lot of makeup, and when she didn't I always told her, "You look tired." I didn't know she wasn't wearing makeup. I was never into the makeup game. This went on for 4 years until after we graduated, when I realized she wasn't tired. She just wasn't wearing makeup. A 4-year breakup, if you may. When I was in college, my friends and I played this drinking game called the Buffalo Club. Essentially, if you were in the club, you were not allowed to drink alcoholic beverages with your right hand. If you were caught taking a sip of your tasty alcoholic beverage with your right hand by one of the other Buffalo Club members, they would yell Buffalo, and you were then required to chug whatever was left in the container from which you were drinking. After I had left school, I went back to visit. I got there late on a Friday night and the partying was already in full swing. They were sitting around shooting the crap and drinking. I was sitting across from a girl I didn't recognize who was repeatedly drinking with her right hand. I figured if she was hanging with my friends, she had to be in the club. So the next time I saw her put her cup to her lips, I pointed and shouted Buffalo at the top of my lungs. The buddy sitting immediately to my right leaned in quickly and whispered, "She doesn't have a left hand. She doesn't have a left hand. Then she'd better get used to chugging her drinks." My friend was one of 9 children. His father came into the room and said, "Boys, I'm going to tell you something you'd never thought you'd hear," and my 17, maybe 18-year-old idiot mouth said, "You're gay." He didn't have a sense of humor. Turns out it was some football statistic. I went to a wake at a funeral home for the grandfather of one of my friends. He had been sick for a long time, but somehow, the staff did an excellent job of restoring much of his appearance to what it was before his long-term struggle with cancer. So, as we stood there paying our respects, I simply said, "He looks so good, as if he's resting peacefully." My friend's aunt overheard me and said, "Number, he looks dead," right away. Even though trying to be positive, I felt mortified and wished that I had said nothing at all. At my grandpa's visitation, I was standing at the casket with my mom and dad. My aunt walks up, looks at him and says, "Oh, they fixed Daddy's nose." His nose had apparently been broken and never quite got adjusted correctly, so they had straightened it. It was meant, and taken as such, to lighten the mood. I was hanging out with a friend at my place and he was getting picked up by one of his bandmates. His bandmate shows up with some girl I'd never met. When I tried to introduce myself, she completely ignored me. I jokingly said, "Who died?" "My mother, you butthole." Turns out it had been about a week since her mother had passed away. Like, for realsies. Every time I saw her afterwards, she would glare at me. No amount of explaining could convince her that I wasn't trying to be malicious. My iPod broke, so I put it into rice. Then the next day some Asian kid told me he cut his finger bad. So I said, "Why don't you put it into rice to fix it?" Not only did I sound stupid, but racist too. Not the person who said it, but I was on the other end. Was at my girlfriend's funeral and a friend said to me, "Well, you're single now." Me, half joking, "My mom saved me from a coyote when I was a baby. What has your mom ever done for you?" Friend, "My mom's dead." Luckily he wasn't offended. 3 years later, I still feel awful, though. You couldn't have known though. Well, I was round my friend's house. Around 5-6 people were round the house, when one of my friends I am going to call Kate, walked in the living room completely drunk. She came running over to me and my friends and sat next to me. She looked over, extremely drunk, and said to me, "Hey, can I have a hug?" So I gave her a hug, and for some weird reason I said jokingly, thinking I was funny, "Haha, it's okay. Remember, a BJ is better than no job." The split second I said it, I went from that guide to remember to bring your rape alarm guy in my friend's group. P.S. I'm so dumb. You gave your friend a fake name and then never used that name again. So, my family has this inside joke. If you're looking for something that's right in front of you and can't find it, you look like a man, suggesting men are bad at finding things. I was at a grocery store when I was in high school, eating at a cafe they had there. This lady, 40s probably, is looking around near the coffee machines. She turned to the counter guy and said, "Excuse me, where is the creamer?" He pointed it out, right in front of her. I couldn't stop myself in time. Take my upvote. I'm going over here to cry with laughter. D. I called my mum a B at the high point of some massive blowout argument about 7 years ago. Never sworn around my parents, let alone at them, before or after then. I still feel horribly guilty about it now. I asked a girl if she wanted to frick. I think about it a lot, and I wish I could take it back. She turned up dead not long after, and I found out her life had not been the happiest. I wish I hadn't been so stupid and actually tried to be friends with her. She seemed cool, and I wish I hadn't been so wrapped up in trying to look cool in front of my friends. I still think about it all the time and hate myself for it. Holy crap. I had an employee who told me she lived in Japan and spoke Japanese. I said, "My aren't you a cunning linguist?" Then I remembered she was gay. My heart stopped and I could feel my face getting red. I started to imagine the lawsuit, being fired, her crying. Then she burst out laughing uncontrollably. Her girlfriend came by later that day. She told her what I said and they both laughed uncontrollably. To be fair, those words make complete sense in context and you could lie and say you only meant it in the most innocent of ways. In an interview for a job I'm glad I didn't get in the end. I went for a job at Best Buy to work in the computer electronics department. The interviewer asked if I had any people skills. I, having abundant friends online, relayed the fact that I'm very approachable, kind-hearted and easy to build somewhat of a relationship with. Then for some freaking reason I thought mentioning the fact that I stopped my online friend from committing suicide. If I can talk him off the ledge, I can communicate rather easy with customers. I have never said, to this day, anything so cringeworthy, and this is a constant reminder for me to think before I speak. When I was a kid, I was playing soccer with a bunch of kids and there was a special needs kid on our team with fetal alcohol syndrome. We lost the game like 8-10 or something and I don't know what kind of irrational rage I had going on. But I pointed at the kid and said, "It's because of that kid we lost." "Oh, I remember. It's because the other team said we suck or something." It's the equivalent of your enemy team saying GGS. Anyway, I didn't know he was special needs. Nor did I even know what special needs was since I was an ESL student. Nor did I know what FAS was because the school was too dang politically correct to explain what mentally retardation or other health issues are for me to be more understanding of these things. I said sorry, but decades later I still think about this. Okay, but FAS or not, if he sucked, he sucked. It's not right to tell anyone they suck at something, but the point remains. I'm a school bus driver. The absolute worst child on my intermediate run is this girl. She's mixed race and always wore her hair in a bun. She was the most hostile and uncooperative kid I've ever met. She told me I was being racist every time I had to discipline her. Like, she'd be standing up and having a full-blown fist fight while I was doing 45 miles per hour down the road. What the frick, kid? Unfortunately, she had a doppelganger. This other girl was so sweet and kind. I adored her, but I was always mixing them up. They wore their hair the same way, and the school enforced uniforms so they always looked more or less the exact same. I always managed to recognize them correctly though. It got to where I absolutely dreaded going to work and having to deal with the first girl. It was so frustrating that nothing ever got done about her and her family. I was getting threatened and stalked along with some of the students, including the second doppelganger girl. On the last day of school, the second nice girl got on and I didn't notice. When I saw her sitting in the back, where the first girl was not allowed to sit, I sort of angrily called her to the front like, "Get up here." She said, "Ms. C'est fabuloso. Did you think I was crappy doppelganger? Do you think we all look the same to you?" I was so embarrassed. I took another route this year. I'm so glad I won't ever have to see that horrible girl again. But I feel bad about looking like a total racist. Sometimes people do look similar though. Doesn't necessarily mean you were being racist. Was dating a nice guy. Felt a lot of love. He confided in me his mother was a prostitute when he was growing up. No big deal. We're out shopping together and in the homeware depot. Saw one of those decorative wooden signs that say love, hope, etc. This one said home. I shouted, "Hey, you could get that for your mother," and laughed. Cause the way it was packed all you could see was a big, red, wooden sign saying HO. He said what? I quickly said it would be a nice gift for her to have in her house. He didn't buy my excuse and it was a quiet shopping trip after that. Now that's just wrong. Hilarious, but wrong. Told a dead baby joke. I was 10 and loved dark humor. To a family friend after being explicitly told not to. Turns out family friend had previously tried for kids twice. Both stillborn didn't survive. He proceeded to tell me this, to which I responded, "Oh," and ran away. You're the burning shame of that one's going to stick with me until I die. Throw away because I am desperately not proud of this. In my last year of university I good as called my flatmate to S. We'd been having a few drinks and I made an extremely ill thought out remark about sleeping with her. What made this worse is that I'd made the judgment that she'd sleep with me on the basis of the number of boyfriends she'd had in the past. Well, you can imagine how she reacted to that, and for the next few weeks everything I did or said to try to apologize or make amends seemed to make everything astronomically worse. What I'd said also exacerbated her depression. We ended up barely speaking to each other for the rest of the year. I watched this exact scenario unfold in my uni kitchen and now want to be the cliché redditor asking if I know you. When I was an intern for a cardiologist's office, I was responsible for checking patients in and bringing them into rooms. One day a new patient came into our office. He was paralyzed and, of course, was in a wheelchair. As I handed him his paperwork he asked me, "So I just fill this out and bring it back up to you?" And I replied, "Yup, that's it. Just take a seat outside and bring it up once you're all done." He stared at me with a blank look on his face, and then I realized I just told a paralyzed man to take a seat. I was on the receiving end of this one. I was at the airport with several family members when a rental car employee called out to us, "You all look like somebody just died." We had just arrived for my brother's funeral. I was hanging out with a friend and my crush, talking about God knows what. I should mention that I was curious about him, so I stalked him a little bit. My friend asked him when his birthday was. Note, at this point my crush and I didn't know each other well. I blurted out his birthday before he could. He was very shocked and weirded out that I knew. Let's just say it didn't work out between us. I better not spill this. Your grandma might shoot me. Talking out loud to my GFS niece 5 hours after her father, grandma's son, shot himself. After a clearly strung out pills, man cut me off, then got out of his car with his 8-year-old-ish son, and they both started flipping me off and calling me a stupid W and the like. I yelled back, "Next time I'll just run your stupid butt over, so maybe your son will have a chance at having a real dad." Man shut up and staggered his way into the store while his young son kept shouting profanities. The kid is a lost cause, but at least you put the dad in his place. This is more along the lines of what someone has said to me. My sister passed away a few years ago, and although she was older we still looked identical. People still call me by her name when they see me. I always come back with, "Sister's name here is a dead one. I'm Ali." The look on their faces is priceless. Maybe a dong move, but it gives me a chuckle, and I'm sure she'd do the same if it were me. Sounds like something George Weasley would do. My former best friend I've known for 10 years, she, Asian, was making fun of one of my cousins relentlessly about his ethnic background. He's black and Asian, saying he looks confusing because of the mix and saying he's a wannabe Asian. She has a preference for dating only black guys and has gone around the block, so I knew her background. Well, when she said that to my cousin, I got pretty pissed off and said something like, "Well, he's 2 races, which is pretty awesome to me. Whereas you will never be black no matter how many black guys you let unload inside you." Which is probably half this city, right? She had the look on her face like someone told her that her family member died. That's when I knew I fricked up and instantly said I didn't mean that, and she walked away and drove away. A week later a mutual friend called me saying she has been crying for a week and said that she knows that I didn't mean to hurt her like that, and she apologized about what she said about my cousin, but she is really deeply hurt. I sent a very long apology text to her number and she texted a similar type of apology back. Well, although we apologized, we never been the same again. We basically stopped contacting each other after a while. It's been 7 years since that incident, but I remember it like it was yesterday every time I think about it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.